Welcome, fellow bookworms, to Tibra's Den. My name is Whitney, and today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I'm reading for the 2 readathons I'm participating in. So I'm participating in Orilium, which is put on by G at Book Roast. We are in the autumn equinox, and this is my second year participating. So I started with the autumn equinox last year, and then in 2025 did the spring equinox, and now I'm on to my second autumn equinox. So I'm participating in that, and then I'm also participating in the Cryptid Creatures Readathon, which is put on by Tricia at Sweet Tea Reads, and she has a co-host, Nala. I can't remember the name of Nala's channel because that's a new channel to me, but it will be linked down below, and I'll put it here, of course. And so, yeah, that's all about cryptids. There's a bingo board. If you just read one book, that's fine. And there's multiple ways to fulfill the squares if you want to. So the books aren't in any actual order other than I put, as I was figuring it out, I put the books that fit for both readathons first, then Orilium next, because Orilium is my priority, and then the other ones for the Cryptid Creatures Readathon last, just because that one I would like to get a blackout, but you know, I will fulfill something, at least one, multiple squares I will for sure fulfill, and then I'm just hoping I can get at least a bingo, and I'm a perfectionist, a completionist, so I would like a blackout. And so, yeah, that's kind of the order they're set up in, is both readathons, then Orilium, then the Cryptid Creatures Readathon. Now, I already did a TBR video, so all but 3 of these books were in that video. I did the synopsis and everything like that. So if you want to know more about the books themselves, go check out that video. This is literally just what prompts they're fitting. Like, that's my focus. I might give the synopsis of the 3 that were extra. We'll see when I get to them. Other than that, though, I think it's gonna be pretty straightforward. I'm very excited. I will leave both channels and the announcement videos and everything, or all 3 channels, down below in the description. So that way, if you want to join, like I said, the Cryptid Creatures Readathon, it's a bingo board. If you just read one book, you're set. So let's go ahead and start with this first book. We'll just go down the line. So the first one is going to be for Orilium. It's from, let me preface one thing. So for Orilium, my character is doing 3 different callings, and I know that's quite ambitious. And obviously, one book, like, you can't log that for multiple callings. So, classes that overlap, there's a book for each class. So the first class is the first calling is necromancy. The first class for that is going to be restoration. And there's different levels as well. So this one is for the O level, and the focus is unbroken focus tinctures, and the prompt is single point of view. And then for the Cryptid Creatures Readathon, then I'm going to fulfill the prompt for the Kraken, which is to read a book with pirates. So that it has, you can either read a book about that specific cryptid, or you could read a book for the prompt, and I'm going for all the prompts. So I'm going to be reading Vengeance of the Pirate Queen. I did look it up. It does say it's single point of view, and obviously it's about pirates, so it works perfectly for that prompt. I really enjoyed the first 2 books in the series. This is the 3rd one, but it's following a completely different character from the first 2, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. Tricia Levenseller, I really enjoyed everything I've read. There's a new book coming out the end of this month, What Fury Brings, and it was funny because I didn't look at what that book was about because I know I like this author a lot, and so I didn't even look to see what that book was about, and I was surprised. It's about women who are kidnapping men, basically. So that should be interesting when it gets to me. The next book I have is for my Godseer calling. This is also for restoration, but this is for the Q level. And so if you have to get a higher level Q or D, you have to read all the levels prior to that. So like I said, this is going to be a little bit out of order because they're just kind of stuck in there. But this is the Q level. The focus is continental remedies. And so I had to generate 5 random countries and then pick a book from one of those countries. So I got Bahrain, Kiribati, Mexico, North Macedonia, and Turks and Caicos. I went with Mexico on this one. And for the Cryptid Creatures Readathon, this book is going to fulfill the prompt for Jackalope, which is to read a historical fiction. So I chose The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno-Garcia, who is a Mexican-American author. And yeah, this one is a new release. And it just really caught my attention. I only saw a couple people talk about it, but it really caught my attention. And I saw it at the local independent bookstore and knew I needed to grab it. So, and I got 10% off because I had credit there, which was nice. So that's going to be my pick for those. Then let's see here. The next one is back for my Necromancer calling. This is for the class Spells and Incantations at O level. And the focus is Charm Luck. And so it's to roll a d6 and read a book in that page bracket. I rolled a 5. Now, I didn't film that at all because I was just trying to figure things out. So, like, I didn't film my country generators and I didn't film my roll. But I rolled a 5, so it needed to be within the 500-page bracket. And for Cryptid Creatures, it is fulfilling the prompt for Bigfoot, which is to read a book over 400 pages. And this is like 546, I want to say. 543, sorry. 543. And that is The Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk by Carissa Broadbent. Now, Carissa Broadbent is like my top author right now. My favorite author is Nora Roberts, but right now what I'm enjoying is Carissa Broadbent. And so this is part of the Crowns of Nyaxia books. It's a set of 3 duologies. So this is the second duology. And so this is the second book in that duology, which is this Shadowborn duet. And I absolutely, everything I've read from this author has been 5 stars. My favorite is the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. The first duology in this, I still gave it 5 stars, but I didn't really love the characters so much. But the first book in this second one, I really enjoyed it. It had like an underworld theme and such. It was so much fun. So it definitely left it on a bit of a tension-filled note. So I'm very excited to read this and see where we go. So there's that one. The next book is for Godseer again. This is Conjuration, and it's Q level, and the focus is borrowing spells and to borrow a book from another's TBR. For the Cryptid Creatures Readathon, this is going to fulfill the prompt for Chupacabra, which is to read a multi-POV book. So I'm going to be reading Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This has been all over BookTube. I know I've seen multiple people put it on their TBRs. I can't say a specific TBR. I watched so many TBR videos, but I know I've seen this on TBR, so I'm stealing it from multiple people for that. And it is multi-point of views. You have 1532, then you have an 1827 POV and a 2019 POV. So you have Alice, Charlotte, and Maria. So I've really enjoyed B. Schwab's writing. I've read different things, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, Gallant. I enjoyed both of those. And so I'm really excited to give this one a go, and it just sounds right up my alley. So there's that one. Then we have our first for my herbology calling, which herbology is really pretty straightforward. There's only four things to fulfill for that class. There's 2 classes, and I have to get a Q level in each. And if you want to know why I'm doing so many callings, these callings, all three of them, make sense for my character. So I will link when I created my character. I'll link that video down below too in case you're just interested in knowing more about my character. So this is for Herbologist. The class is Restoration again. And so it's level O, and it's Unbroken Focus Tincture, so single point of view. And for the Cryptid Creatures Readathon, it's I'm gonna butcher this, and I'm so sorry. Michele Bembe, and it's to read a book with dinosaurs or dragons. So I'm going to be reading The Undercutting of Rosie and Adam by Megan Bannen. You can see there's dragons on the cover. And this is the third book in this series. The first book was The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy, and then The Undermining of Twyla and Frank was the second book, and in the second book we're introduced to these dragons, and so yeah, it's on the cover, so I'm going to count it. And this is a fun one. So basically these are set in this world of Tanria, where the old gods got locked into like this prison area, and in the first book there was like basically like not quite zombies, not quite wraiths, but kind of an in-between, because the souls would take control of freshly dead bodies. And so you have these marshals that are having to fight these creatures, and there's like a wall, and like Adam is the inventor of the gates to go through this wall, and then Rosie is a demigod. So I'm really excited. I loved both the first books. I read the first one twice, and then I recently read the second one and absolutely loved it, and I'm really looking forward to finishing up the series. So that is that one. Then let's see here. The next one, we're back with my Necromancer calling. And for this one, it's for the class Spells and Incantations. It's Q level, and it's Current Spell Trends, released this year. For the Cryptid Creatures Readathon, the prompt is for the Thunderbird, and it's read a book based around weather. So I'm going to be reading The Amalfi Curse by Sarah Penner. There's like a sea witch as far as I can understand. So you have Haven Ambrose, and she's a trailblazing nautical archaeologist. And I'm pretty sure like she unearths a centuries old tale of ancient sorcery, and one woman's quest to save her lover and her village by using the legendary art of Dredgeria, a magical ability to harness the ocean. Could this be the magic behind the city's latest calamities? So I did Google it, and it did say it fit for the magic or the weather theme. So that's gonna be my choice for that, and it was released this year, so that's perfect. Then the next one is going back to my Godseer calling. This is for Conjuration level O, and the focus is conjuring circles, and so it needs to have circles on the cover. And then for the Cryptid Creatures Readathon, it's for the Groot Slang, and it's to read a hybrid genre. So I'm going to be reading Behooved by M. Stevenson. You can see you have a circle in the sun there, and then you also have a circle with the moon down there. And it's a hybrid genre. It's romance and fantasy. Now, I did Google it just for clarification purposes, and it said no, it's not a hybrid genre because it's romantasy, but romantasy is hybrid. It's romance and fantasy. And for this one, I feel like it's more going to be romance focused with just those fantastical elements, because it's like an arranged marriage, and the male is cursed to be, there's an assassination attempt, and he's cursed to be a horse by day, I think. And then a frustratingly attractive man by night. So I think it's going to be lean more into the romance. So I don't think fantasy readers would necessarily pick this one up. But I'm excited about it. It sounds fun, like very kooky and fun. And so yeah, I'm going to be reading this one. Then we have the next one is another one for Godseer, and this is Restoration O level. So again, Unbroken Focus Tincture, single point of view. for the Cryptid Creatures Readathon, it's Bloop, read a book with a noise. So I'm going to go with The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating by Elizabeth Tova Bailey. Now for my birthday month, like, obviously I try to keep it more lighthearted, fun reads. This is going to be a little bit more serious. It's a memoir of this author when she was sick, and she connected with a snail. So it's just been on my radar for quite a while, and I've always been interested in reading it. And I recently hauled it like a few months ago. When we went to like the used bookstore, we would look for it and ask about it. And they didn't have it, and my husband's like, just get it. And so I just ordered it, got it off Pango. So I'm really excited. And then it's the sound of a wild snail eating. So that's why it works for Bloop. That's a fun one. And she's been doing recommendation videos, Tricia has. And I didn't even think about it. She's like, you can read an audiobook for this prompt. I didn't even go there. So, but I had that on my TBR, like on my pile of possibilities anyway. And then next up, we have for Necromancer, and it's Demonology class, level O. It's Impling Outburst, and it's Emotion in the title. The Cryptid Creatures Readathon, this works for Yeti, which is to read a book with a cold setting. And I'm going to be reading another Tricia Levenseller. These were the only two books I have left of hers, and I want to get them read before the new one comes out. And so I'm going to be reading Warrior of the Wild. And so this one, I took anything that I could say I feel blank, and if I could slot a word in there, I took it, because I'm trying to make the books I already wanted to read work. And so I feel wild. I think that works as an emotion. You feel wild. You feel out of control. And so I took that. And then for cold setting, you can see like the mountains in the background, and that looks like snow to me. And I did kind of flip through, and at one point it says she jumps into a lake, and it was like shockingly cold. If the lake's cold, it's in a cold setting. So I'm making it work for that. And I'm just really excited. This is Viking inspired. And I think I'm going to really enjoy it. So there's that. The next one, I think that was the last one for, that works for both readathons. So we're going to finish up with Orilium, and then we'll track back to the Cryptid Creatures. So this one is for Godseer. It's Demonology again. It's O level. So again, Impling Outburst, emotion in the title. And so for this one, I'm going with the third book in the series. It's The God of Lost Words. And I think you can feel lost. So, and this is by A.J. Houck. And for this series, basically you're following Claire and a bunch of other characters. And Claire is Hell's librarian of the Unwritten Wing. So any books that were just kind of concepts but never got written, they end up coming down to this written wing, and they kind of have a sentience to them, and they can kind of come to life. And one of the books escapes, and she goes after it. Well, the angels think she's after Hell's Codex. And so they confront her. Well, now she's interested and wants to know what this Hell's Codex is. And so they go on this big adventure to find it and such. And then it kind of takes off from there in each of the other books. And I really love these. They've been 4 stars for me just because the pacing's kind of off for me. But the concept and the vibes of the books are fantastic. And in the first book, there was like this battle with words, which was so much fun. I absolutely loved it. And so yeah, I'm finally going to be wrapping up that series. There is that one. Then we have another Godseer, and this is for Inscription, O level, and it's Magic of Primes, prime number of letters in the title. And so I'm going to be reading the September House by Carissa Orlando, which has 17 letters in the title. And this is actually my family's book club pick. So this one has been on my radar. I think it came out like 2 years ago, and it's been on my radar since then. And doing our book club, I was like, this is the perfect month to read it because it's September. And so I'm really very excited about this one. Basically, she buys this house, and like every September the walls bleed and weird things could happen, and then her husband goes missing, and I'm very excited about that. So there's that one. Then we got another Godseer. So this is one I did have to add in because I did not have a single thing that worked for this prompt. So the class is Lore, and it's O level. It's Forgotten Tongues, and it's to read a translated book. And this one is super tiny. It's a children's. I'm going to be finally reading The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I know I butchered that. I looked it up and everything. And yeah, I've never read this. I've always wanted to. And it says, no story is more beloved by children and grown-ups alike than this wise, enchanting fable. One day, the author reminisces when his plane was forced down in the Sahara 1,000 miles from help, he encountered a most extraordinary small person. If you please, said the stranger, draw me a sheep. And thus begins the remarkable history of the Little Prince. The Little Prince lived alone on a tiny planet no larger than a house. He owned 3 volcanoes, 2 active and 1 extinct. He also owned a flower unlike any flower in all the galaxy, of great beauty and of inordinate pride. It was this pride that ruined the serenity of the little prince's world and started him on the interplanetary travels that brought him to Earth, where he learned finally from a fox the secret of what is really important in life. There are few stories that in some way, in some degree, change the world forever for the readers. This is one. So yeah, I've never read this, but it is a classic children's book that I've always wanted to. So I'm glad I can make it work for this prompt. Then we have, so these some of these next ones are going to be fun. There's a lot of children's books here. So we got Godseer again. This is Lore again. Level Q though, and it's Ancient Post, letters or notes on the cover or inside the book. And I'm going to be reading Bunnicula Meets Edgar Allan Poe by James Howe. This is part of the Bunnicula series, and I read the first 4 books, but I never read the other 3. And so last year when I did my reread of the series, I went ahead and hauled the last 3 that I had never read, and I'm going to be reading this now. There's the editor's note, which has a letter. Well, it's a note too, but it also has a letter in it, my dear friend. And then the first chapter is the letter, and the letter is part of it too. And there's also a picture with the dog holding the letter. So it definitely works for that prompt. And I'm excited to read the final 3 books. The next one is the last Godseer book, and again it's for Lore. I had to get level D on that one, and so it's Miss of the Minusmule, 2 or more M's in the title. So for that, I'm going to be reading Small Miracles by Olivia Atwater. This one, I love her Regency fairy tales and the Victorian fairy tale book. Absolutely love this author's writing. This is going to be completely different from those, but I'm still very excited about it. It's like a fallen angel, and she's trying to get this human to give in to temptations. And so yeah, I'm excited to read this. This is the only book by this author that I haven't read yet. Although I think she does books with maybe her husband, but somebody else, and I haven't read those at all. And the Victorian fairy tale book, it was supposed to be a series, but there's been nothing else since that one came out. So I don't know. Then we have Necromancer Calling again, and this is Animal Studies Level O, and it's Hatchlings. Read a debut book. And for this one, I'm going with God Killer by Hannah Kaner. And I have read this one before, so this will be a reread, but I never continued on with the series. And since the last book came out, I think it was this year or the end of last year, but I think it was the beginning of this year, I wanted to just read the whole series again. And it does say that it was her debut. So, but yeah, I'm excited to continue this. I really enjoyed it from what I remember. I don't remember a whole lot of it, but I'm pretty sure I really enjoyed it. I think I might have given it 4 stars, not 5, but still, that's really good. And I like the concept of the gods and the way they're brought into being by devotion and such. And so yeah, I'll be reading that one for that. Then we have another necromancy calling, and it's conjuration level O, and so conjuring circles on the cover. And for this one, I'm doing another Bunnicula book, and so this is Nighty Nightmare, again by James Howell. And so you have the circle around a Bunnicula book, so around the bunny, and there's also a moon up there that's a circle, and I could even say like the little eyes from all the critters are circles. So that's gonna be that one. The next one I'm very excited to read. I've really enjoyed the books I've read from this author. I've read one horror, the middle grade book by this author, and I'm reading another horror in August, which there's only 1 week left when I'm filming this. And so yeah, I need to get on that because it's for my family book club. But this is the class Conjuration level Q, which is borrowing spells to borrow from another TBR. And I'm going to be reading Swordheart by T. Kingfisher. Again, I can't remember the specific TBRs I've seen this go on, but I know I've seen it go on some TBRs. And Paladin's Grace is really popular right now from this author as well. But I have seen this go on specific TBRs. Again, I watch a lot of TBR videos. Like, that's my number one way to support other booktubers because they're my favorite videos. So that's gonna be that one. I'll get that back in there. Then we have our last Necromancer class, which is again Conjuration, but this is level D, and it's to conjure a snack. So it needs to have food on the cover. And I had exactly one book that worked for this, and it's another Bunnicula book. It's going to be The Celery Stalks at Midnight, again by James Howell, and you can see it has celery in the background. And so the whole premise is Bunnicula is a vampire bunny and he drains the vegetables. And I think in this one, they're convinced they're turning into zombies. So that's going to be a fun one. Then we have our last three for Orilium, which these are all for my herbologist calling. So this is Alchemy level O, and it's Liquid Sunlight, sun on the cover. And so I'm going to be reading Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. So this is book 2 in the Fallen Gods novel. And yeah, you can see obviously it has the name Sunbringer, and then there's a big old sun right there. So it's perfect. And then the next one is book 3, which is for Herbology, Alchemy level Q. And it's Blossom Properties, cover in your birth flower color. And so my birthday's in September, and my birth flower was Aster, which I think the one G showed the little graphic that she showed. It was Aster with a secondary of Morning Glory, but the Aster on that one was a purple color. And so I'm going with Faithbreaker by Hannah Kaner. And you can see it has a lot of different shades of purple. And I thought kind of this one or the lighter purple in here kind of worked for the Aster that I was seeing. And so yeah, I'll be reading that whole series hopefully to fulfill these prompts. Then the last one, I did have to add an extra book on because I did not have anything. So again, it was Restoration level Q, which is Continental Remedies. So generate a random country times 5 and pick a book from one of those countries. So in this one, I randomized 5 new countries. So I did randomize Rwanda, Australia, Cuba, Botswana, and Guam. And I have several Australian authors. So I tried to decide what I was feeling because I have like a mystery thriller by Jane Harper, who's an Australian author. And I decided to go with romance because they're super easy for me to get through. So I found this in a little free library, and I'm going to be reading The Rosie Project by Graham Simpson. And this one does sound interesting to me. There's been 2 other, tickle in my nose. There has been 2 other books I've read with like similar premises. The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren, and I don't remember the other one, but I enjoyed the premise of both those books, and so I'm hoping I enjoy it in this one as well. It says Don Tillman, genetics professor, is getting married, or he will be when his 16-page scientifically valid survey yields a candidate. See The Wife Project. Designed to filter out the drinkers, the smokers, the vegans, the late arrivers, Don Questionnaire is, for the socially challenged academic, the most logical method to finding the perfect partner. Enter Rosie Jarman. Don quickly disqualifies her as a potential wife, but is drawn into Rosie's quest to find her biological father. See The Father Project. When something like a friendship develops, Don must confront the spontaneous whirlwind that is Rosie, and the decidedly unscientific conclusion that sometimes you don't find love, it finds you. So I'm hoping I enjoy it, but we will have to see. Not an author I'm familiar with, but I did find it in a little free library, and it's, like I said, I enjoyed the 2 other books I read that had similar concepts to that. So now we have the last of the books for the Cryptid Readathon. So first up, this is going to be for the Jersey Devil, and it's read a book with a family dynamic. And so I'm going to be reading The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. This one revolves around this family and their camp and their children that have gone missing. So I'm excited to read this one. This has been on a lot of TBRs. I could have used this for borrowed from another's TBR, but I'm very excited to read this. So that's the first of the last set of books for the Cryptid Creatures. The next one, I'm so excited about this one. So I loved this. There was the original series, which I don't remember how old those are, but they had 5 of the main books and a little novella that went along with that. And then last year she came out with a book that's like an alternate reality to that series. And so the sequel to that book just came out. I don't know how many books are in this series, because it's not being like projected, but we got Tiger's Trek. Now this wasn't supposed to come out until the 9th, and I got it like 3 weeks early. I pre-ordered it from Barnes & Noble, and it was selling and it was shipping, but I'm very excited. So in this world, you have this tiger's curse, and in the first one, it's these 2 brothers that are the first series, which is the 5 books plus a little novella, is these 2 brothers that are cursed. So in this reality, those 2 brothers never got cursed, but the curse still exists. So it goes to these twin sisters, and they go on this like trek to figure out what's going on. And one of the sisters, they're twin sisters, but nobody knows who was born first. And neither one of them wants the crown and the throne. But one of them has to take it. But now they're cursed to be these tigers, and they're going on this big adventure. The first book of this new set was a big disappointment, especially with as much as I love the original series. Nothing really happened in it. It was all set up, and so it was really disappointing for me. So I'm hoping, because this is the sequel to that, and we have had the setup now, that this one will, have more going on in it. And I don't know if I said what it was. This is for the Cryptid Creatures Readathon. It's Rougarou, and it's read a book with an animal on the cover, which obviously there's a big old tiger on the cover. So I'm excited about this one, and we'll just have to kind of see where we go. When I finished the one last year, it was obvious there was going to be another book, even though it hadn't been announced and it wasn't like projected as a series. And it's really weird on Goodreads, because why it says in the title part of, the Tiger's Curse series or whatever, it's not on that list, and it's not connected to that series. So it's kind of weird, but we'll see how that goes and see if it ends on a cliffhanger again. And if there's going to be more, I don't know. So the next one was for the Ahul, which is to read a book with flight. And then finally, this is going to be actually a top priority along with the Orilium reads, because I need to read Nightbane by Alex Aster. This is book 2, following Lightlark. And this was a gift from Christmas, and coming up again to Christmas, so I need to get it read. And there's different kingdoms, and there is one kingdom that flies, and there's one character in particular. I double checked it and Googled it, and it says yes, that character flies. So I'm excited to continue on with the series. This one, I did not love the writing in these books. I thought there was a lot of mistakes, and it wasn't good writing, but it was entertaining writing, if that makes sense. There was a lot of plot holes and just things wrong, but it was very entertaining, and I had a great time. So the next one is for the Mongolian Deathworm, and it's read a book with desert setting. And so I'm going to be reading Many Waters by Madeline L'Engle. A Wrinkle in Time, which is the first book in the series, is my favorite book probably from my childhood. I used to check it out over and over and over again. I only ever read the first 3 books because this one is following the twins, Sandy and Denise. And I was just never really interested in it. Like, they were fine, but I was never really interested in it. So I never read this one or the 5th one. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the 5th one to work for anything for the readathons. And so that one, I don't know that I'll get to, but if I don't get to it, I'll definitely read it next year at that. So, but I love A Wrinkle in Time so much. So it'll be interesting to finally get this read and see how I get along with Sandy and Denny's. And yeah, they end up going, and they're in a desert setting. So it's like a time travel thing. And it says, when disaster threatens the oasis where they have made their home, can they find their way back to their own time? So we'll see how I get along with that one. Then the rest are all children's books, so it's going to be super easy. So first up, we have The Bunyip, which is to read a book set near a swamp, bog, or marsh. And I Googled it, and this is an island, and it does say it's marshland. So I'm going to be reading Misty of Chincoteague by Margaret Henry. I wanted to read all, 4 books in the series. I was only able to get 2 to work, so I don't know if I'll get to the other 2, but again, if not, I will be reading them at some point. And so yeah, Misty of Chincoteague. I had one of the ones I'm not going to get to, Stormy Misty's Foal. That's the book I had as a kid. And I don't know that I ever read this one, but I'm very excited to read these books. Like I said, I loved Stormy Misty's Foal. I loved that book as a kid. And this is about Misty of Chincoteague, which is this island with these wild ponies. I think it's off the coast of like North Carolina, possibly. But yeah, so that's what I'm going to be reading for that, and I'm very excited about that. Then we have another Misty of Chincoteague book. This is the 2nd book, and this one was for the Loch Ness Monster, and it needed to be a book with water on the cover. So I'm going to be reading Sea Star, Orphan of Chincoteague, again by Margaret Henry, and you can see behind him there's water back there. So I'm excited. I've never read this one. This is one I know I have never read. I didn't even know it existed until I was, getting Misty of Chincoteague all sorted out on my shelves, and I was looking, and it's like, oh, there's another one. So, yeah, I'm excited to finally read this one. Like I said, I'm unsure if I read Misty of Chincoteague, even though that's like the main book. But I know I read Stormy Misty's Foal, and I think I read the other one, which is what is that one? Misty's Twilight. I'm not entirely sure if I read that or not, but I think possibly. Then the last book, this is again an extra one because I didn't have anything on my list of possibilities that worked for this prompt, and it's Mothman, to read a dystopian book. But for my birthday month, I really like to revisit favorites from my childhood, and this is definitely that. So I'm going to be reading The Giver by Lois Lowry, and this is one of my favorite books that we ever read in school. I've read it as an adult. I just absolutely love this book, And so yeah, when I didn't have something that worked for that, I was considering putting it on anyway. The only reason I didn't was because my list was getting overly large. But it works for Mothman, and so that's going to be on there. And it's children, it's super short. I'll be able to knock that out no problem. So I'm actually pretty excited. So I'm pretty sure I'll be able to read the children's books no problem. So those 4. So it's just the 3 that I might not get to, but I will for sure get to Tiger's Trek. Nightbane's a priority, and so it's just the God of the Woods that I might not get to for the Cryptid Creatures Readathon. But honestly, just having that one book, I'm probably gonna prioritize it as well. Even though I said I was gonna focus on Orilium, like looking at the books, it's like, yeah, we'll see. But yeah, those are all the books for the different prompts. And I'm excited. I would love to know if you're participating, some of the books that maybe you picked out, or if any of the books are the same as the ones that I picked out. I would love to know that down in the comments below, or just a book you're excited about. If you just want to let me know you're here and you're helping to support the channel by commenting, you can always leave a rabbit or any type of animal emoji, maybe a horse for Misty of Chincoteague. You can leave that down in the comments below because it really does help the channel out. But I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys here. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.